You're listening to the Mile Marker Podcast, where we explore trends and innovations in fleet automation and shared mobility, helping fleet-based businesses make better informed decisions and achieve full digital transformation. Welcome, everyone, to the Mile Marker Podcast. I am your host, Angela Simoes, and today our guest is Rick Bell, Managing Partner at the Merlin Group, a business consulting and services company. Rick is an innovative thinker, a builder of solutions, and he has designed and executed national last mile solutions for tier one major e-commerce companies in both ICE and EV platforms. Before establishing Merlin Group, Rick held strategic senior roles at Merchants Fleet, where he engaged with clients to develop innovative fleet management strategies and programs and identified opportunities for efficient value-added solutions. Rick is a decorated veteran of the United States Army Infantry, and he was deployed multiple times in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and served as instructor at the Officer Candidate School. Welcome, Rick.
Well, thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. Appreciate it.
And thank you, sir, for your service very much. And from the right side, we have Mark Thomas, EVP of Strategic Alliances. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Angela.
So, Rick, you have pretty extensive experience in the fleet world. Can you give us a brief overview of your background and, where you used to focus and now how you came to establish Merlin Group and what you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. So I was with Merchants back in the early 2000s. Merchants Rent-A-Car at the time. And, even back then, Merchants Rent-A-Car was very integrated with the fleet platform. Many of the vehicles we would receive in the rental car division may have been former leases, and oftentimes our vehicles would sometimes be pulled into leases. So that was kind of the early precursor to that kind of dynamic fleet integration that we saw many years later. After my return from the military, I came back to Merchants Fleet, and the rental car division was gone, and we were short-term solutions, eventually mobility. And over the course of the better part of the last decade, we really worked to refine and define what became, I think, operational mobility in the fleet space. We worked closely together with our fleet partners inside the organization. And I think we consistently uncovered opportunities and flexible solutions that attracted some of the major clients that we eventually brought on board. That it led to opportunities and led to really insights that I think are unique and different. But I'll stop there. And
just for clarification, can you define mobility and talk about just a bit about how that's different from the classic business model?
Yeah, Mark, that's a great question. So that's a hard question to answer, right? So I think with my previous company, we referred to as the free movement of people, personnel, and goods and services responsibly. And I think that sounds great, and that's true. But mobility really is about capabilities. We often hear the word tossed around quite a bit, but mobility is being able to be flexible with your actual assets, leverage those assets to solve problems for clients. It is really just one leg of the stool. Mobility really is finding solutions that may fall outside of your traditional competencies. I like to refer to it as the confluence of capability, technology, and need. The capability could be myself or the company. The need is the client, and the technology could be a third party that we leverage to solve problems. But it's a hard thing to define. I think it really starts and ends with the mindset. Mobility, you never say no. You might say no in the end, but it's not part of the first 10 or 20 solutions. No isn't something we say often.
Are there any labels that you would put on it that we're more familiar with? Is it car sharing? Is it rental? Is it what are the subscription? Do these things fall within, or are those more traditional?
So no, those certainly fall within. Mobility is going to be a matter of leveraging your capabilities, and capabilities go all the way to how you finance your fleet, your assets, how you leverage your partnerships and your relationships. Mobility isn't my belief and what I think has been successful, it isn't a single party system. It isn't just one or two. It's what it takes to get the job done. We look at EV and the struggles with adoption and really pushing those programs forward. That's going to take, and it has taken, more than one partner. Flexible, innovative, out of the box thinking. Though all those things are part of mobility, they're catchphrases, but they are true. And you have to be true in the execution as opposed to just the verbiage.
So I think it's a good way to look at the industry in general, in terms of, so you're saying like the definition of mobility is changing, and that's because like the market is changing, and you're seeing new partnerships, new collaborations, like things that people maybe wouldn't have anticipated, right? And so to that point, and you've kind of hinted at this already, but where do you see the biggest need in the fleet industry? You talked about things like flexibility, innovation, and collaboration, but can we deep dive on some of those? And maybe you have some examples that you can share that exhibit what that actually means.
Well, let's first talk a little bit about the fleet industry, the fleet management industry. My last company did a remarkable job of kind of breaking the mold, starting with, really in 2017, redefining what it means to be fleet management, truly being innovative. We built a massive portfolio of owned assets from, class 2 right through class 8. That gave us incredible opportunity and options when we went to sit down with the largest companies in the country and said, hey, we can do some unique and different things because we own these vehicles. When you look at fleet management industry, it's the real question is there the cause for change, right? Is the case been made for the largest FMCs to really change the way they're doing things? I think that the industry is, as we've seen, they are it's downside. I mean, the companies are eliminating, we have mergers and acquisitions and things like that. And then I think we have a retrenchment of those traditional ideas in fleet management. So the real question is, can the case be made for a flexible dynamic mobility, not just where my previous company did a great job, but in true action and execution throughout the industry? That's an open question. I think you have a challenge that there's a lot of below the surface items that go into being able to be truly flexible and solution oriented. It comes to financing, how you finance your fleet, your ABLs, your ABSs. It comes down to how much of your fleet do you own? What are your operational capabilities? So if you think of a traditional fleet management company saying, hey, we're going to place 10,000 orders for a pharmaceutical company. Well, they place those orders and the pharmaceutical company gets their cars and there may be some upfits or whatever it might be. And it's all very static and routine. Well, could you imagine those 10,000 vehicles being in an owned asset portfolio where that fleet management company has to take those assets back after maybe 5 or 6 months? They have to recondition those assets, redeploy those with another major pharmaceutical company. There's cost, there's capabilities, there's teams, there's so much involved in that. And I think the real question is, is it the fear of that challenge that we don't see true mobility spreading across more companies in the fleet management industry? We know that the largest providers and largest companies in the United States, the Amazons, the FedExes, the UPSs, the Teslas, the Walmarts, and the Targets, they're all starving for these types of solutions. The real question is, well, why aren't the fleet management companies rushing in there and saying, hey, we can do this, as opposed to saying, hey, I can order your vehicles for you, I can provide you a maintenance plan, I can give you some accident management. That's a pile of vanilla ice cream. I think really the clients are asking for a rocky road.
But this would be more like being able to account for seasonality or spikes in demand, and having vehicles that they have access to either for short term or for a season rather than a longer term commitment.
Oh yeah, very true. I mean, also, if you look to like a more, what I like to call a dynamic fleet integration, a large provider or something like any name any company, they have their fleet rotating and those fleets are rotating out, right? They have seasonality. when you bring partners together and you can bring in your new assets in certain times of the year to, for example, let's say peak season, and that's kind of the easiest low hanging fruit to talk about. But peak season, volumes for the major e-commerce companies exceed over 100,000 temporary vehicles every season. So if you can work, and this goes back to the other question we had regarding, can multiple companies work together in common cause to solve a request? I think the case is yes, right? So we've had discussions, and I've had discussions, and it's kind of a passion project of mine to say, let me bring in some assets that I own in the early fall or late summer. Let's get those to where we need those to handle those seasonal needs, and let's rotate those into kind of the permanent standing fleet post the holidays, post peak. And then we could look at the existing fleets that the client has and make really good decisions on which vehicles can go to disposition and when and what time that works well. Now, that takes a couple of partners to do that. But if you only have that one traditional fleet leasing management option in your toolbox, then you're not going to really do that, and the client is going to have to search for other options.
Speaking of clients, what are the unmet client demands from their perspective? So you talked about FMCs having potentially needing to have a different solution offering, but tell me more about some of the pain points that you see typical clients may have.
Yeah, a couple stand out pretty prominently. You're looking at upfitting time, being able to really track the progress of your vehicles from cradle to grave. I mean, there's a lot of good processes out there, but there's some voids that, of course, when you have a void of visibility on your vehicle moving through its onboarding and upfitting, then the delivery and deployment to your client, that's real dollars, and times that by thousands of vehicles, we're talking billions and billions of dollars that are being kind of lost in the sauce. So there's a real need to be able to understand the life cycle of those vehicles more than just the high level, it's here, it's there. It's understanding how a vehicle moves within those organizations, the different departments, how long it might be in risk or credit management being evaluated, or has that client actually had their file reviewed lately, and then will that be a holdup? There's a lot of things within organizations that they can fix, but to know that it could be a potential problem is half the battle. When you look at, let's say, EV adoption, so it's real challenging. We talked a bit before about OEMs having to be really more flexible and innovative in their offerings. The financial engineering for EVs is really fraught with danger. When you look at trying to incorporate certain vehicles, certain platforms with the unknown residuals in the back end, you're sometimes forced to write that entire vehicle down during its useful life, and that results in wildly unfavorable rates and costs to the client. So that's an area FMCs really could use some of their power to leverage to help those clients. That's where it's going to take more than just a traditional approach. It's going to take multiple people and companies coming together to say, hey, if we really want to go green, we want a sustainable future, we're going to have to work together. And that starts with not just innovative out-of-the-box solutions on renting or leasing vehicles, or the bold actions by a client saying we're going to invest in infrastructure. It takes from the very beginning, when you're looking to set up your financing and you're looking at your CFO and the finance team, they have to be as innovative as everybody else in the organization. You can't apply a traditional finance model to the situation with, let's say, EVs and mobility solutions and expect to have results that are going to be favorable.
So back to some of those bottlenecks that you mentioned. Just for companies, maybe the end fleet customer who may not have visibility into how FMCs run, what are some typical, say, upfitting times or credit times, or how, times between customers, and what are some of those big time barriers that take time and money?
Yeah, certainly when you're placing orders, just the order banks and the traditional delivery time for vehicles has been wildly changing these last several years. We're kind of coming to more of a phase of normalcy. But when you're talking about upfits, this is really an area where it is a bit of a black hole. and it's a common issue with clients and FMCs alike, that when your vehicle is ordered and it has to go to a upfitter and it's there for, who knows, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it kind of falls into a black hole. And not having visibility or really tracking that effectively leads to a lot of collateral problems. I mean, the vehicles are not delivered on time, or they're ready and it's not known. It seems simpler than it is to solve that problem. When you're looking at individual clients, and this might be more of a mobility client, where you're having your assets going out, it might be a rental or long or short-term lease or a close-in lease option. Well, if you're not staying up with your client where they are in terms of their credit and risk portfolio profile with your company, you may have a request for vehicles that you have on the ground that could be in revenue producing status. Then now you're going back, you're asking for financials, you're looking for maybe additional information. You could have just changed over a fiscal year, and now those are out of date. The shame is oftentimes there's need out there, and the client wants vehicles. They need to get those into action, and the processes within an organization aren't sharp, or they're just unaware. So I'd say that's an area. I think when we're talking about transport, right? It's about having a variety of transport partners. Now, generally, FMCs, dropship locations, they're going to be nearby. But once they go to, let's say, upfit, well, now you need another transport partner, right? Oftentimes you can get that first move to the upfitter. So if you don't have dynamic transporting, and I have a belief that oftentimes when you build relationships, you should start having those critical elements, those critical enablers, I call them, part of your solutioning very early on. Don't make it an afterthought and say, well, I need to put this out to bid. Let's have this as a solution. If I can leverage that in the beginning, then maybe I have a commitment. I can save days and weeks, which translates into billions of dollars every year. And I'm sure
Right.
there's many others, but it's.
Yeah. Well, just based on what you have been saying, there's like so many different directions that I could go with this conversation, but I think the two main areas that I would love to dig into is, the areas that you talked about in response to Mark's question about what are some of the client demands, what are some of the things that they need to be doing, but they aren't doing. Is that because, do they even know that that's what they need to be doing? Is it because they don't have the technology to be able to do that? Or they know the technology is out there, but they're not quite sure, how to start or where to go? And then kind of parallel to that is, to have those kinds of insights and know that this is where we need to have better visibility, to have better operations and take better advantage of some of these new opportunities. You have to have that open, thinking outside the box culture in a company. And as you were talking about some of the traditional fleet management ways of doing things may not work here. So those kind of go hand in hand, right? So how do you address, kind of moving beyond this DNA of maybe not being flexible and adaptable and that sort of thing? How do you, what's your advice on how fleet management companies can move beyond that to be more flexible and dynamic, and then adopting more flexible technologies? I'm not having a lot of the words, the adjectives I'm looking for, whether that's, AI or automation or all those kinds of things, right? So would love to dig into that a little bit.
Well, I would say that, there is, as I kind of said earlier, there's a tendency to retrench into kind of the traditional business model the FMCs had prior to COVID. And that's normal, I guess. That's normal. I mean, people have their comfort zones. One of the things with the fleet management industry is that there isn't a whole lot of new DNA that is circulating within these organizations. It's very transient. You have executives on various levels that move from company to company. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But you're not really introducing that positive mutation. I think my previous company did a great job at that. We definitely they have definitely changed the face of fleet management. Now, I do think there's a tendency to want to continue to evolve, and there's nothing wrong with that either, to move towards the gold standard of fleet management. But the case has to be made. The case has to be made that there is advantages, there's opportunity when you look at mobility solutions, when you think out of the box. Revenues can be higher. Risk is a little higher too, but there is definitely a need and a desire from the biggest, I keep saying the largest companies in the world, but some of these very large companies that really would embrace this type of partnership, which can elevate your business. So they have to be dynamic in the way they look at their business. They have to decide, is it a traditional path we want to stay on? Are we happy with 2 or 3% growth every year? Or are we going to try to really change things? And I got to tell you this, that, if they're going to be sustainable, if that's part of their strategic planning, that by the very nature, that's going to require a whole heck of a lot of out of the box thinking. You're not going to get there with kind of static thinking. So I would go there. I would really say, look, there's some tremendous advantages, economic advantages for you as a company, if you can brave the terrain of out of the box thinking. And I said earlier too, it can't just be 1 or 2 people in an organization. It's just too much to push uphill. You have to have innovation and that spirit to be bold within your finance department, within your operations department. One of the scary things you got to look out for is someone, maybe the mentality sometimes can be, well, that's a great opportunity, but that just makes my job harder. Now, that's a natural reaction, and I have sympathy for people that feel that way. The job does actually get harder when you're breaking boundaries, and when you're elevating your business. Everything's going to get harder, but so does opportunity. Organizations, they have to really sell that vision inside. Rising that tide lifts the boats for everybody. There's promotions, there's new divisions, there's places to go. I think every organization probably has a handful of real strong, innovative architects, and they're not feeding them. And if they're not feeding them, they're going to lose them, and maybe discourage actually that out of the box thinking. The old Japanese saying about the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. We've got to watch those things.
I don't know. I might disagree with one thing you've said, which is that innovation actually makes work for people. If you think about innovation like a self-service portal where customers can log in and provision the vehicles themselves and not have to count exec, or maybe some of the innovations that apply automations, so that rather than having to notice that the upfitter said it's done, you can just have a system that's automatically listening for that, and then call the transport company and arrange that shipment without anybody needing to be involved. We think that some of the innovation maybe takes away the grunt work from some of the less glamorous parts of fleet management.
No, I would agree with that, Mark, too. I think it's about a mentality of feeling it's going to create more work. And as executives and as leaders, you have to explain just that. Like, this is probably going to make your life easier. There might be challenges, but it has to really, the organizations have to believe in it and want to have it, right? And there's so much reward out there for those that choose that path. There really is. You have access to tremendous clients. You have access to opportunity. And really, if these companies don't find a way to consistently lead and push into the future, they're going to be left behind.
Yeah. How does all this M&A that's taking place in the industry affect the industry?
Well, I think there is a danger in any type of environment with this many mergers and acquisitions, that the status quo becomes acceptable. And again, I'm not gonna detract from people work hard, and that's fine, and that's important. But I'm not going to detract from that. I fundamentally disagree that the standard is acceptable, right? And so you have this consolidation going on, and ultimately it's going to consolidate, and it's going to eliminate competition. It's going to eliminate some of those smaller fleet management companies or those independents from having the opportunity to rise up and show their wares and show their capabilities. They'll be consumed, and they'll be really potentially just silenced, and that's sad. It's the nature of business, and those acquisitions make sense financially in many cases, but ultimately it probably stifles competition and stifles innovation, in my opinion.
You talked about having to make the case for evolving and embracing opportunity and, changing the way you do things. And then we also talked about how some of these areas can be a black hole where we don't even, know how long it takes to do things. So can you talk a little bit about, the conversations you have been having with customers about when you make the case? Is it, hey, listen, your current process for turning around a vehicle is taking 6 weeks. If we could find you a solution, or if there was something out there that would get it down to 1 week or even 2 weeks, I mean, is that the kind of case that resonates with folks and helps to change the mindset, or is it something different? Because when people are operating from a sense of fear or resistance to change, like you said, the status quo becomes acceptable. What's that, or what are um, the those points that say, yes, okay, you can't argue with that. We have to look into this. We have to pursue it. What does that look like?
Well, let's look at those accelerators in process as investments, right? They're not a cost. They're not something to be feared. They're investments. They're enablers to more growth and more revenue. I think that certainly can be, lack of a better word, sold to the FMCs and different organizations, and then really show what this enables them. I'll give you an example. My previous company, there was one time when we had a delivery window, I think it was 21 days from order to delivery. This is very far back on some of our mobility assets. I want to say that got down to little as 3 days, which is an incredible achievement, operational capabilities. That achievement, I don't want to be too dramatic here, but you think about the challenge of going to the moon, right? So we set this goal to go to the moon back in the 1960s. So by going there, we innovated multiple solutions that have benefited the world since then, from Tang into microwave ovens to what have you. When you take on these challenges and you see that it's going to be difficult, when they incorporate these accelerators and operational capabilities, there's ancillary benefits that probably are unknown to them, but we call it the known unknown. So I think it's really important to be able to talk about it, to show that it is an investment and that clients really will appreciate. And honestly, you've got to move at the speed of business. We're not going to go back to a pre-COVID environment. That's just not going to happen. So to be successful, you're going to have to move at the speed of business, and maybe the economy is kind of vanilla right now, and that's okay, but it's not always going to be that way. Things will fire up again. If you're not ready to move quick, you're going to be left behind. And that sounds like just sounds like words, but really it is the truth. I think the fear I have is in the fleet management industry, there's too much of a desire to go back to what was. Go back to the 50s and 60s and 70s when we had 8-9 weeks order a vehicle and no one expected anything special. And that's just not going to be there. And the tools, the companies today that have come out of the before and have really cut their teeth in the struggles and difficulties in COVID are fully capable of doing some amazing things, being amazing partners. And to leverage that, it is such a tremendous advantage. It's silly not to take that and move forward.
Oh, I did not expect us to be talking about powdered flavored orange drink.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting throwback reference. But looking forward, how do you see the role of the OEM encroaching onto the FMC business?
Well, that has been a refrain for quite some time. I think that's the boogeyman in every FMC closet, is that the OEM's just going to do this. I don't think they have really effectively have ever really executed. I think you always will need that FMC. There is, an OEM is selling vehicles, right? And when you detract from that effort, and when you detract from your dealership network, and we've seen recently there's efforts to kind of cut the dealers out of some products and programs, hasn't worked out very well. Hasn't worked out very well at all. I think that the FMCs have a role, but to the points we're making here, if they don't make themselves relevant, to future proof, then maybe the OEMs can kind of step in and say, look, this is pretty vanilla. I have telematics that's in my vehicle. I manufacture it. I can update the entire fleet in moments. Yes, I can give you gas cards. I can do access. So yeah, me too. There's a lot of, I can do that too. And so the FMCs should really be thinking, how do we put ourselves apart? How do we stay relevant? And how do we push people the envelope of innovation, or else they'll probably be left in the past. So if now more than ever, there's probably a risk of that, Mark, that OEMs could see, hey, we've got the technology, we have the footprint, we have the ability, maybe this is the moment. If it's me, I am pushing my organization to really just to stretch out that step and start sprinting.
So I wanted to ask you about AI, right? That's a topic that I feel like you can't have any conversation without mentioning AI. But I want to ask it in the context of what you're doing now. So you've established the Merlin Group after having all this years in the fleet world. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you're doing at Merlin Group, the conversations you're having, and does AI come up? Like, are companies asking you about it, or is it something that's still just kind of in the hype world and not something that people are seriously considering right now?
Yeah, well, first, so Merlin Group is born out of a spirit of true innovation, out of the box thinking, and kind of an architect mindset that says, let's deconstruct what is, and let's see if there's new ways to do things. Let's look at things from 30,000 feet. We talk about our CICs, which is cross industry collaborations, where we might say, hey, there's a paving company that has common ground and some synergies with a EV battery manufacturer, believe it or not. So we have found some of those connectivities between those organizations. We talk about with our clients, we talk about this mindset, innovation right through the organization, how critical and important it is. And regarding AI, certainly it is in every conversation. Just had a conference in Atlanta that my team was at, and one of the platforms that was really interesting to us was an AI warehouse automated vehicle that really it's not just a EV, but with the AI technology, you're taking a lot of risk out of the equation. You're building these warehouses for maximum efficiencies, and I think this is the world that we're moving towards. And so, leveraging AI, in that sense, the gains are very clear. So I think it's almost in every conversation that we have, and it's not going to be something that's going to go away. AI will either overtly or very subtly work its way, and it already has, into so much that we do already today, I think. So, and it's we look at Merlin and we know that it's an area that clients are eager and hungry for. So we'll find those organizations, those partners, and we'll bring them that information, and maybe build some bridges and some synergies between traditional and non-traditional opportunities.
It sounds like you're helping some of these companies be open to thinking outside the box, right? And introducing some new ideas and new strategies that maybe they hadn't considered before. What's the reaction to some of those conversations? Are they seeking out help in this realm, or is this something where you're maybe at an event, you're having conversations with people, and they're saying either, actually, it's a really good point, we should talk, or nah, we're good. What are some of those conversations like?
So we had an event in Fort Lauderdale about a month and a half ago. I'd say the response was pretty good. We established some cross industry opportunities. I want to say that in that room, at our roundtable, we had almost $500 million of sustainable money to invest, capital to invest, and I think the teams, the different attendees walked out of there with about $200 million in deals and agreements put in place. They didn't see that coming. Our next event we're going to hold during the ATC in Las Vegas will probably be a little bit different, but we bring people into the room. we kind of kick off some conversations based on a lot of research of those organizations. We sit down with understand the philosophy of those organizations, and we kind of get the conversation going. And then we do a lot of traditional follow-up and reinforce that, hey, these were good ideas 2 days ago. They're good ideas tomorrow, but a good idea that's not executed is really just a pipe dream. So I think that we've led the horse to water. We've kind of made it drink a little bit, and now they're lining up at the trough, so to speak. So the proof's in the pudding. I mean, it's a lot of work every day and every week to engage and to bring value. But that's what we do, and that's what we enjoy doing. So it's good reaction, and I think I hope to see a snowball effect, because I think truly what's rewarding for us is seeing organizations, individuals kind of having that aha moment, saying, I never saw this. I never looked at it that way. I have opportunity. And when it really comes to challenges in the organizations downstream, we hope they look back and say, yeah, I'm open to new ideas and new concepts, and we have to think differently. And so that's kind of some of the benefits I think that we can hopefully expect down in the future here.
Yeah, well, congratulations, Mark. I think we need to sign up for that round table.
We
can
will
sign
be
for
at
the next
ACT
one.
Expo, so I
Yeah,
definitely plan to meet you there, Rick.
You may
Right
have an
on.
invitation. I think it's going to be in the Fontainebleau. Looks, I'm doing a plug right now, so that's the shameless plug, right? But we'll make sure we get the information over to you. And we're going to have some pretty innovative individuals at that round table, a wide cross section of industries, and we're going to really try to pull out some synergies and have a little fun at the same time too. It's Las Vegas after all, right?
There you go. All right. Well, I think to wrap it up, we usually try to do we do a lightning round, just to end things on a light, energetic note. If you're up for that.
I am, and yeah, I love this. Is pretty interesting. So I'm ready to go.
All right. Well, here we go. So, if money's no object, what car are you buying?
Yeah, no doubt in my mind, it's going to be a Bentley convertible GTC. I think it's a GTC black, maybe with tan interior. That's kind of the dream car. And
Nice.
I'm a resident of Miami, so I see them all the time. And I just have to watch them drive by, and but that's
And
the car.
sigh as they drive
Yeah,
by.
one day. Which, if you drive in Miami, you find out that maybe you can't afford the insurance because it's wild. So I'm probably safer just walking around.
Got it. Will fleets ever be fully electric?
Well, it's easy to say yes, because you're not giving me a time limit. In the year 2467, I believe,
I agree.
I think you're going to see. I think the Class 8 space is going to be challenging. I think you're going to have diesel, clean diesel or hydrogen in some form or fashion. And of course, that's depending on how you do the hydrogen. It could be electric, but for the next 20 years at least. Commercial fleets, I mean, I have a concept that we call Firefly, and it's really about looking at the aggregate in total and saying, hey, you don't have to have 400 vehicles at this one delivery station that are electrified. If you just did 10% at all your stations, the grid could probably handle that, and you're actually pulling more CO2 and carbon out of the environment if you do it that way. So there's different ways you have to look at things, and ultimately, if the financial modeling doesn't support it, then you're going to have a tough time. We need more grants and incentives. We need grants and incentives that are easy to access. There's sometimes grants and incentives you have to jump on a foot, whistle 3 times, and do a somersault just to figure out how to get the grant or incentive. So those things have to be made easier. But I'm going to say yes. I think yes, fleets will be electrified in our lifetime.
Interesting. I was going more with, I agreed with the 24, 20 timeline, but we'll see how we do on that. Okay, well, same question for autonomous. Will fleets ever be fully autonomous?
Yeah, I think that is absolutely going to happen. I think that what we're seeing leaps and bounds in AI technology, tying that with obviously autonomous vehicles is that's probably within. You're probably seeing a 50% adoption in autonomous fleets within the next 10 or 15 years. And I think that economically makes sense. And unfortunately, there's some human capital that comes out of the equation there. But at the same time, that is definitely going to happen. That's probably more near term than fully electrified, I would say.
Wow. I have to say, you're the first guest to say yes to both of those questions. We usually get the no, it's not going to happen. So I love the variety. I love the new perspective.
I've
Thank you.
launched quite a few electrified programs, and they're very, very difficult, and they don't always succeed. So I think my success is sometimes in the failure, but that is such valuable experience that I do see with clarity the 3 or 4 things that have to be done to enable this type of growth, this type of success. So I see a pathway. If I didn't see
That's
a pathway.
fair. That's fair. What's the biggest opportunity that fleets are missing out on?
Certainly, we've talked about quite a bit here. Is efficiencies in the way they operate, future-proofing their operations, and then really leveraging the opportunities that a true mobility program would afford them. That's probably where they're missing out. I'm sure I'm gonna get some dirty looks, but fleet off and top, every fleet company says mobility, 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 but I don't think there's a whole lot of actual companies that understand what that really means and execute. A previous company is the best in the business at doing it, and probably more people should be emulating what they're doing.
Got it. And finally, what's your proudest moment, either personal, professional, or otherwise?
Professional moment. Well, I have to go back to the military. I don't say this lightly or for any kind of accolades, but my last deployment, we had about 360 combat missions, and not a single soldier was wounded or killed.
Wow.
Previous deployments, that wasn't the case. But when you deploy, when you go overseas, you gather and you're kind of with your families and husbands and wives and kids. And I had a few children of my soldiers walk up to me and really say, at the time I was the NCOIC of the command, the combat commander for Baghdad's security detail, and it said, Sergeant Bell, please bring my father home. And I don't think anything will rival the relief I felt and pride I felt that they all came home.
Cannot argue with that. That is amazing. And thank you again for your service, Rick. It's very much appreciated. And this has been an amazing conversation. I think very insightful on where the opportunities are for fleet management companies. That's within grasp. It's not impossible, right? The technology is there. Just you need the will. It comes down to the will and the willingness to get it done.
Opportunities there. Just seize it and put down the fear, and great things can happen. And work together. Work together. We got to break down some of the barriers between different companies, and just say, let's work together. It's for the greater good, and I don't say that lightly. That's going to have to happen.
Amen. Well, thank you so much for your time, Rick, and thank you, Mark. This has been great. So until next time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate being here.
Thanks for listening to the Mile Marker Podcast. If you liked what you heard today, give us a like, share this episode on social media, and even take a minute to give us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you can join us for future episodes full of insights and ideas to keep the mobility industry moving forward.